In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Yep, no problem. All right.
Hello and welcome. It is Monday, October 12th, 2015. I'm your host, Rashibi. Alongside me is my partner, Threenen. As always, this is episode 4 of Q-Popped. We are currently in week 16 of Warlords Season 2, and the current catch-up cap is 24,200. Last week we had our first guest, who was a bit of a gaming noob, PvP noob, all around noob, and it was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed it. We had a lot of feedback from that stuff. We did get our first question and our first real email that wasn't a troll. So
Sweet.
And the guy, I won't say his full name, but he had like five names, and so I thought I'd go ahead and announce that. It was from Bruno in Brazil. He said, "Are you worried about the apparent merge of both PvP and PvE gear? Since what we saw at the press conference, most of the PvP progression would be cosmetic. The real concern every PvPer has is we would be crushed by those who have the time to grind the raids, and I will just immediately, we don't know anything more than this, and I hope that you're not right, that we're not going to get crushed." But from that same interview, we summed it up a couple weeks ago, and Holikas said that you won't have to raid to get the best PvP gear, flat out. And he also said there are plans for players to be able to get great gear from PvP, but it may not be as easy to get it as it is today. It may be easier for high-rated players to get it than for more casual players, which we've seen in the past. They've introduced different ideas. So, what BC Burning Crusade, you had to get, I think it was 1850 for the weapon, 2,000,
Yeah, like that.
2,000 for the shoulders. I remember getting that and just thought I was total boss because nobody else had it. And then the next season, everybody could get that, and I was really sad. That was the Vengeful gear. That was the first season they introduced something like that, and that was like the coolest looking gear ever. Still is to me for every class. So it's always my favorite. But yeah. So, and then Bruno also had some really nice words to say about the podcast. I won't go into it. I might shed a tear, but it was really nice, and we really appreciate that kind of stuff, especially from, you know, as far away as Brazil. Somebody's finding that. I don't know how they found that. I would like to ask him if it was the Twitter or if he just randomly found it on iTunes, which, by the way, we are on iTunes now, and you can find this on most of your podcast apps on your Android phones. So unlike before where you could just find us on SoundCloud and YouTube and Twitch, now you can just go on your phone, get on a podcast, download it, and stream it from the road without having to get your bills for your data usage way up. It's a lot cheaper now. So yeah, go ahead and do that. The beer of the week, I didn't have time to get a beer for this week because I live in a very small community, and it's about a 20-minute drive to get to a real liquor store that has beer that I haven't tried. So I asked my good friend Jeff, who has been a manager at a liquor store for a long, long time. He worked with my wife. He's a big beer connoisseur, and I asked him to do it. He's a WoW player and a Hearthstone player and Heroes of the Storm player. He was more than happy to do it. So Jeff's recommendation is Coop's Oktoberfest. He gives it an 86%, which I do out of 10, but he did an 8.6 out of 10. He said it has some nice maltiness with the spices you'd expect from a Bavarian Oktoberfest. Very drinkable. 10 out of 10 would drink again. He said 10 out of 10, but his score was 86%. So, and yeah, so we had actually, I was thinking we were going to have nothing to talk about this week besides our guest. And then everything happened this week. So
Oh yeah, we had all sorts of crap happen this week.
the first one was the patch notes. So
Yep.
we get, what, 6.2.3, which I hate saying. And how many arena seasons have been released on an alternate patch note, like not 6.3, 6.2.3? I know there's been a few, but most of the time
Not
they
many.
just throw them in with a content patch, but since there's not going to be one, they had to throw that in there. So there is a 6.2.3, and there is a Season 3, which means if you watch the first episode, we argued, me and Thranen, if there was going to be one or not, and he was very sure that there would not be.
No.
And
I
that
didn't
was
say I was very sure. I just wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't. But yeah, I was wrong.
you were wrong, and
Yeah, I was wrong.
and I was right. So, which, that's comes with the territory.
Yeah, whatever.
So, okay, there's a bunch of stuff in the patch notes. If you're a PvEer, a lot of it applies to you. They did announce cross-mythic rating, which I thought was a really good idea because it does keep player base around, and that means, maybe some of them will stick around and do some PvP too. But then I read it, and it said for Hellfire Citadel, which is like the previous content, and it's just to clear that and see it, because the gear for the heroic of the current raid is the same as the mythic for the last raid, so there's not really much they're getting out of that. Maybe a couple item levels. So that wasn't a big deal. The big deal is they say around the release of patch 6.2.3, a transition to Warlords Season 3 will take place. More information and details on the close of Warlords Season 2 and transition into the new season will be available in the future. So, we don't know anything. What we do know is this season and the transition from Season 1 to Season 2, if you played all that, which I did, you had to grind the honor gear for the new season, which was no fun at all. And you had to do all the BGs or Ashran. Most people just did a lot of Ashran the first few days before they hotfixed that. You're not going to have to do that now because the new blue gear is exactly the same as the current purple gear. So you can just jump in and start going. The new gear is called Warmongering Gladiator, and it'll be 740 item level. Which means the title, if you're a rank 1, like our guest today, I'm sure he will get it if he plays. He's too excited about Overwatch, I think, but which I am too. We actually going to have a little segment for Overwatch just because. Yeah, title be Warmongering Glad. I kind of went through Arena Junkies in the forums, and everyone hated that. It didn't sound so bad to me. It's cool. I really liked Wild, though. There was a bunch of hate for that one, too, so I don't know. That's pretty much everything PvP for the patch. Did you see anything else?
No, I think that's about it.
Did you look at this tournament, this new tournament that's coming up? This was on Arena
No, I didn't
Junkies.
even know about that.
Yeah, Vanguard posted this. And there's a new tournament, the MGN tournament. And I found their website, and they're a guild in the US, or NA at least. And I couldn't find out what MGN stood for. I looked for about 5 minutes. I couldn't figure it out, and I gave up. But they are going to be hosting a WoW tournament that will live stream on November 14th, 2015, which is a few weeks after BlizzCon, so you get a little rest and get rid of your BlizzCon hangovers. And if you're interested, you can go to their website. There is a link to it on Arena Junkies on the homepage. If you go to arenajunkies.com, and it will be a $3,000 prize pool. The teams can have 3 to 4 players, so it's just like the current Blizzard competitive stuff, the BlizzCon stuff. First prize is $1,500, second prize is $750, third $500, fourth $250, and they said if there's not enough players, which is under 16 teams, they won't have a fourth prize. So their guild is based in the US, like I said, so the tournament will take place there. So EU players, if you don't have accounts and everybody in your team to do that, you won't be able to compete. But as far as I know, if your main region is EU and you have a North American account, I think you can still play. So go ahead and do that. Or any other region that's listening. But I think EU and NA should be the only teams that are listening. For esports this week, do you want to go ahead and give the results of that? I actually didn't watch it yesterday.
Yeah, neither did I.
But I did watch a little bit on Saturday, and it ended up being Yacht Boys beat out Bleach Bones. Bleach Bones had Looney on their team, if you remember him from BlizzCon last year. Crazy Resto Shaman. So, and Bleach Bones is a big, old PvP famous name. So, and of course, 4 years is like ancient in internet terms. So, we did have some more drama from the EU regionals. Well, sort of. I didn't really see it as drama. There was a huge forum thing about it. This one didn't seem as big a deal as the last stuff to me. Did you? You went ahead and read all that, right?
Yeah, most of it.
Okay, so why don't you read this off to the viewers while I take a deep breath?
Which part are you talking about? Just like the first part here?
Yeah, this past weekend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this past weekend at the Road to BlizzCon 2015 European Regionals in Prague, 2 players from 2 different arena teams were disqualified on the day of the tournament. This resulted in less than ideal experience for everybody involved, especially the other teams in attendance. In both cases, the disqualified players were found to have violated the terms of service of World of Warcraft. According to our tournament rules, wow, lost my place already. Oh,
So basically, Blizzard gave their side, right?
yeah.
And we talked about for weeks. You know, we wish they would just come out and say something. I do think it's a little bit too little, too late. But basically, they said these players that were disqualified, if you caught up with all that, they were not in good standing, and they had done a thorough investigation afterwards that said they had done something that was against their big TOS. And it said this includes exploiting game mechanics, buying or selling accounts, playing with another person's account for advantage, boosting, or in collusion with other opponents. So their side is this was not just him getting on a girlfriend's account, and maybe we'll never know. Maybe it was totally innocent, and but you know we don't know. We now have both sides, and I think that is a big deal. I'm glad that Blizzard at least came out and said something in the real defiant about it. You know, it's real matter of fact. They did this. They did something. We can't tell you exactly what they did because we don't share account information, but they did something that is not just getting on your girlfriend's computer. So that's something. And our thoughts are they should have done it sooner, but they should have. And even in this little thing, they said that they should have taken action sooner, right?
Yeah.
And that's really good on them to come out and say, you know, we handled that poorly, but then their reaction to it was also just as slow. So I think it took them, 3 weeks to come out and say
like
something.
That, yeah.
And I try to always give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt, and I don't think they did anything wrong. They were just trying to make sure everybody's playing on their rules so that, you know, somebody couldn't come later on and say, well, you gave that guy a favor, why didn't you give us a favor? And I think it's a good idea to just be strict on that stuff. And it is their call. But I still, on that particular issue, I side with the players. And the one that I didn't put this in our notes tonight, but the other thing was 3 languages, 1 team were also they said disqualified. I'm not sure that's the correct word. One of the players on their team is 16, and for whatever reason, his parents wouldn't give him the go-ahead to come and compete. Three Languages, one team only had 3 players on their team, so they couldn't get a backup. They asked Blizzard if they could get a 4th player to come on. Blizzard said no, and they asked if that player that couldn't come could only be on for like a week instead of 2 weeks, because they said 2 weeks was too little time. Blizzard said no. They were naturally pretty upset because the other 2 players had practiced tons, and Ebola Cleave is what the comp that they qualified with, Feral Druid, DK, Holy Paladin, and that is not the best comp in the game. It was the only Death Knight, I think, that qualified. I don't know anything about regionals. That was one of 2 Feral Druids that qualified. So this wasn't just like an OP comp and throw it in the mix. They did earn it, and that means that they disqualified. So Solari Yellow took their place, which means all 3 teams from EU are now Solari Gaming. Now, some of them did change their name right beforehand. Actually, I think all of those changed their name beforehand. But in any case, they, they're all Solari Game now, which is kind of funny, I guess, because I would get confused. I think they should have done numbers. That way, it'd have been more confusing for the casters. Because Venruki, VHL, and Super Tees, and Lore would have been up there like, which Solari? 1, 2, 3, 4. Colors are easier, definitely, because they're wearing uniforms and stuff, and they put the stuff up there. I wish they would just make them all fight each other right at first, and Solari 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, A, B, C, D. Then they have to rank them. Which one do you think is best? I think that would be fun. I wanted to slightly talk about Overwatch just real quick. Are you interested in this game?
I don't know much about it, but it looks kind of cool.
So, have you played Team Fortress 2?
Yes, I have. I used to play the hell out of that game.
It's Team Fortress 3, but Blizzard. It really is.
Okay, then yeah, I'm excited for sure.
And to me, it's like Blizzard is like Japan. They just take other games and they just make it better. They make it their own and they make it better. Like, Heroes of the Storm. They took League of Legends, took all the complicated stuff that everybody would rage about every week, and they just made this real simple, nice package so you can play. And there were, EverQuest and tons of MMOs out there before WoW. And they just take it and make it better. And, I guess they are the RTS guys. I mean, you had Command and Conquer and stuff, but StarCraft blows it out of the water. Warcraft blows it out of the water. Anyway, they did announce that the closed beta will start October 27th, and this past Thursday, which I can't even remember what day that was. That was the 15th. Did a little stream session, and it was Elohim and one other big streamer. Got to stream that for like an hour and a half, and it looked really cool. I think that's one of the games that are a little bit lackluster to watch, but really, really, really fun to play. And to me, like, Minecraft is that way. Like, I cannot watch a Minecraft streamer, but I will play the hell out of that because it's Legos. And I think Overwatch is probably going to be the same thing. It's a little more objective based. You're not looking for the headshots. They don't even put the kill count on it, and I think a lot of people are going to beg for that. But there was no kill count when you tab and look at the score screen. Like, if a person was doing well, their character portrait would be like on fire. And also they said probably Overwatch characters will be added to Heroes of the Storm. So you get to see Tracer and Thrall duke it out. Which would be cool. The closed beta will just be a small number of testers who will have regular access to public beta tests, which means you can log in whenever you want, as long as the servers are up. And we're all going to beg to get in, and all of us, I'm sure. I applied for that stuff last BlizzCon when they announced it. I'm sure I won't get in. I've got way too lucky. I got into the Hearthstone and the Heroes, so I'm sure I won't get into this one. But I'll at least get to watch some people play it, which will be cool. And then they're going to have little weekend betas. Like Star Wars Battlefront just did this recently. You'll just be able to hop in on the weekend, play for 3 days, and then you can't play anymore, and you'll be really sad. And going to work on Monday will be even more depressing. So I'm sorry about that. But that's the way Blizzard does it. So the beta weekends, I don't even want to do. I might not even play until it goes to open beta.
Yeah, probably same for me.
Okay, so we're going to now introduce our guest, and we have a lot to talk about him. I'd like to get him in here though before I do the introduction, because I wrote a really long, cool introduction, and I want him to hear it. So I'm going to invite him right now, and hopefully he will pick up. Yes, he is there. Okay, Elliot, I'm going to introduce you. I was going to introduce you before I called you, but I needed you to hear this really long introduction that I swear I didn't copy paste it from your AMA that you did a few weeks ago.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so this is Elliot Venruki Vincel. He has been playing WoW for 10 years. He has been a rank 1 mage since season 1. Not a lot of people can say that. And a rank 1 monk since Mist of Pandaria. I think it was the Grievous season, right? He has...
Yeah.
He has competed at many LAN events, including MLG, the Major League Gaming, ESL, BlizzCon, the Blizzard Regionals, and he even has an NPC character named after him, Elliot Venruki in Ashran, which I'm sure you're going to be really sad because nobody's going to see any of those NPC characters the next expansion because nobody's going to be in that place. And he also has an achievement, Down Goes Venruki. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And he is also the champion of ChinaCon, which was the 2012 BattleNet World Championship in Shanghai, which is basically BlizzCon for that year. They didn't really distinguish that from anything else, but I mean they qualified in the exact same way. Which his team with, I believe, Collective and Snuts won that tournament. It was $105,000 for the first prize team, which I think at that time was the largest prize pool ever. I think. He also,
yeah, you're right. They upped it that year. So
yeah, that was a big deal. I'm sure
it was a good year to win for sure.
Yeah. He recently just started his shoutcasting career for World of Warcraft. He cast both the North American and the European Road to BlizzCon regionals, which we got to see him in a fancy suit. North American, he was alongside Bajira and did some of that analyst stuff, and in the European, we got to see him next to V Helen Lore do some of the shoutcasting, which was amazing, by the way. And he also streams full-time at twitch.tv/Venruki, which I imagine if you made it to this, you probably heard of him and probably seen him stream. So, how are you doing?
The introduction.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I'm doing great, dude. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am actually sporting my new Venruki shirt right now.
Ooh, yeah. How do you like it?
It's the softest shirt I've ever owned.
I know, that's what I always tell people. The Teespring campaigns they're amazing. Ever since I got like the first design, because originally when I was putting out the shirts, I was always worried, because I've never bought from Teespring before, so I was like, damn, I don't want to sell people something that doesn't kick ass. But it ended up being really, really nice, which was great. Yeah,
it's awesome. All their shirts are like $25 normally. It's totally worth it. I'm just gonna wear this thing out, and and I can wear it in public and stuff, and won't get outed as too much of a nerd because they think it's like a beer logo or something like that.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the idea with all of the design. I didn't want to put like a mage or something on it, and there's not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted to like, when I was talking to Harona and coming up with like the shirt ideas, I wanted to make something that like you could just wear out and not worry about someone thinking you're a WoW nerd. Not that I personally care, but I know that's an issue for some people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool because I can wear it out and people think it's a cool shirt. And then I'm like, sit down, let me tell you about esports kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
how you doing? Okay, well, I guess we have a few questions for you. First one is, and I've been trying to keep up with your stream. Maybe you've answered this, maybe you haven't. Will you be casting at BlizzCon?
Yeah, actually, 100%. I'll be going to the opening week, which is, I think, 4 or 5 days before BlizzCon starts, and they'll be playing some of like the WoW games. They'll be basically playing through some of the initial stages through all the tournaments because they have so many games at BlizzCon now. There's just not enough time during the convention and not enough stages to work through every single game of the competition.
Can't watch
So
all.
they do this opening week where they get some of the games out of the way. So I'll be going down for that, and then obviously doing BlizzCon as well.
Okay, and so that's a bit of the reason we were talking just a minute ago about Three Languages One Team. They couldn't come because one of their players couldn't stay the whole 2 weeks, and so,
Oh, really? That's such a shame. I actually didn't even know that.
yeah, we just talked about that. So they were actually disqualified. So they brought Solari Gaming Yellow in their place since they were a fourth place team. So I guess
Glory Game Yellow was they played Jungle and FLS, right? I think.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that team, I can't remember who the player on Three Languages One Team was. The 16-year-old. I guess he couldn't. His parents wouldn't let him leave for 2 weeks to miss school, which really sucks because I mean you get to come to the United States all the way from Europe on a free trip, get to experience all that stuff, and a chance to win a little bit of money. I think that experience is worth way more than 2 weeks of school.
Yeah, it's basically the experience of a lifetime, and that's one of the things I was like, because I kind of started in like going to gaming tournaments really young in my life. Like I played CS 1.6 back in the day. I wasn't really good, but me and my team would go to LAN tournaments in like the US and stuff, and my mom would actually just drive me. So like I was super thankful. She was totally cool with me, like going to WoW tournaments all over the place, going to Europe by myself, and just like figuring it out. And I feel like I'm a much better of a human being because of it. So it's really a shame that he's not able to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really big deal too. Because one of the very first esports stories when I really got into it was Day 9 talking about when him and his brother Tasteless went to some big tournament up north from wherever they are. It's probably Chicago, but they're in like Kansas City area, and they actually got pulled over by a police officer, and it was him, his brother, and one other person, and they pulled them out, looked in their trunk, and they just got all these computers and keyboards and stuff, and they look like these like hacker dudes, and like they're doing something bad. And he's like, no, I promise, we're just good nerds, we don't drink, we don't do anything bad, we just want to go play video games for a weekend. But his mom was a single mother and let him go do all that stuff, and was really supportive, and I think it's super important. My parents have been super supportive of me, even though I don't do anything related to this in life now. Tried to stream at one point, and they've always been really into that, and they kind of get it, even though I grew up on a ranch and a farm and away from society, so they're kind of like, what the heck, but they get it. They get the business side of it, especially. So
It's good. It's kind of good to have open-minded parents like that. I feel like, yeah, it's like I said, it's a big shame when someone's sort of denied that experience just because their parents want to, like, I don't know what it is, if they want to just like keep them sheltered or keep them focused on what they think is like an ideal life. But yeah, I think they're definitely missing out.
yeah, no good. Go ahead, Threaten. Sound like you were about to say something.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm
No.
just listening.
So speaking of your casting, and speaking of tasteless and stuff, did you take any inspiration when you went into casting for WoW?
Well, the thing, so basically what happened with me in starting casting is like I realized there was an opportunity there for me, because I've been like a part of this whole scene for so long and been in like the WoW community for so long. I wanted to like continue with that, and I also wanted to kind of grow as like a person, I guess. Like public speaking was always kind of an issue for me growing up in like high school and in college and stuff like that. I purposely took classes, and I feel like streaming helped me a lot with that, but I also wanted to just kind of like jump in the deep end and get better at that, because it's like it was sort of like a phobia for me. So just that's why I wanted to get into casting initially, and I thought it might open up some doors in terms pardon me, in terms of like inspiration. Like I said, the reason I wanted to get into it kind of is because I knew Isaac Azael wasn't going to be able to anymore, and he was kind of like, he was the anchor. I mean, VL, amazing caster, Laura is an amazing caster. there's been others as well, but I think like overall, when you think of like WoW shoutcasting, like Azale really comes to mind. And I thought that after seeing what he did and like how long I've been playing this game and like my knowledge of the game, that I could like improve enough to hopefully get to that level, and that's what I've been like kind of striving for.
So, and Azale was on Team EG with CD, right? And he now works for Riot and does some League of Legends stuff, and that's why he can't do it for Blizzard anymore.
Yep.
Well, that's actually super surprising that you said you had a problem with speaking and a problem with all that stuff, because I've been watching you since right when you started streaming. It was like Reckful, he kind of started it, and then he would play with you and CD and other people and be like, yeah, check out their stream. And I remember you from like the MLG days back in Wrath. I was like, oh yeah, of course I'll watch this guy. And you seem so comfortable up there, and especially now, like you have no problem in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, it's not a big deal for me anymore, and I think that's just because I kind of like I did it and put myself out there. It's like you kind of have to like face your fears. Even honestly, if you go back and watch the VODs of like the first day I casted US regionals, or like the first day, mostly like the first like little segment, you could tell I was just like super nervous. Like it's honestly embarrassing going back and watching, but it's like one of those things that I just wanted to like do it. Like you have to get into it. I didn't want to like mind fuck myself. Pardon my language. But yeah,
we have expletives.
It's just like
here. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that as I kept doing it, now like even going into Prague with like the huge live audience and stuff like that, it didn't even affect me at all. I just like was so in the zone. I didn't care about all that stuff.
And there were times that we saw, me and Threaten kind of watched this together. We saw like Lore make a mistake or something, and we could see it. You could see it click in your head that you saw that he made a mistake. But it didn't. That didn't phase you. You just kept going. Just let it be. Keep going. You know, don't let the subject bother you. And I think that's really good that you don't stop and be like, no, actually, that's totally wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Just you're smooth and you're calm about it. And I think you're a great caster.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's one of the things. Like those casters up there doing the best they can. I made many mistakes during the last cast, especially in the European regionals. I pronounced Joey's name, his last name, wrong over and over, which was I didn't even realize it till I like looked at Twitter and everyone was like, whoa, and they were like telling me off for it. So I actually messaged him on Twitter and I was like, yo man, I'm really sorry about like pronouncing your last name wrong. Like I guarantee it won't happen at BlizzCon. He didn't care. He had just won the tournament, so he was super pumped up and excited. But it's still just like it's a rookie mistake, and I was happy like during the cast that they didn't like correct me or whatever, you know. So I tried to do the same to them. If people make mistakes, it's not a big deal.
So Venruki, where did that come from? That name, Venruki. I know your last name is Vincel, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. But
yeah, so my it's kind of a two-part name. So the first WoW character I ever made, his name was Venzel. It was a Tauren druid that I leveled up with my friend. His name was Towner, and his name in game was Towner. So he was his last name, I was my last name, and we kind of leveled up together initially. When we hit level 30, he had Ghost Wolf at 20, and I had my Cheetah form at 30 because he played Enhancement Shaman. I played a Restoration Druid, or I played a Feral Druid, sorry, I mean. And we decided that we wanted to go gank. Like we wanted to run around the world and gank now that we had like our awesome mobility in the game. And we went around and ganked, and then we decided that as we got more and more into PvP, we wanted to like duel each other. And me and Towner have played a lot of games. We had a lot of history in like Warcraft 3 and like fighting games. He was like one of my best friends growing up, so we played against each other a lot. And I always beat him at everything. And now all of a sudden in WoW, I couldn't beat him anymore. Like his Enhancement Shaman just beat my Feral Druid over and over and over. And I just decided at that point that I'm re-rolling. Like there's got to be something broken with the class if I can't beat my friend. Like so I re-rolled Mage, and I had already taken the name Venzel on my Druid. So I decided to come up with a new name, and it was kind of a mix of Venzel, which is my last name, and my old Counter-Strike name, which was Kabuki. And yeah, I just combined Venzel and Kabuki into like Venruki, and I decided that sounded kind of weird, so I wanted to add like a letter in the middle. And I tried out different ones like Ventuki, Venzuki, Venduki, and just the R sounded the best. And history from there.
So the way you got your class and spec is actually really similar to mine. and I originally leveled the druid, but I looked on the ladder because this was like season 1. Look on the ladder, and of course, as of every season, Resto Druid is number 1 on the ladder, and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing that. I'm gonna be the best. I'm gonna own. It's gonna be just fine. And then about level 45 or something, I get ganked by like a level 50 Boomkin, and I just get killed by him like 20 times. And then from then on, I played Boomkin from season 1 to season 8 before I wised up and did something not so terrible. But that was exactly how I ended. I just got killed by it over and over again. I was like, yep, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to be the best. And I ended up getting
I shouldn't
pretty
be losing
high.
this. Got to be the game's fault.
So, yeah, I think that's a pretty similar story to a lot of people. So you actually started getting popular from a little forum called World of Ming. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly what it was.
I don't know anything about that forum or what it was, but from my understanding, you ended up like having a duel tournament against the founder or the creator of the World of Ming forum, who was apparently pretty popular at that time, and he beat you, and that was how you got recognized. Is there anything else to that story?
No, that is not what happened. He
No?
didn't beat me. What happened?
You beat him,
was-
is what I meant to say. Sorry.
Yeah, a new patch came out, and he always talked about rogue mage duels being like the end all be all of like skill, and like, yeah, every single patch that came out, he'd do a new duel series against a mage and decide what should finally win, a rogue or a mage. And he had dueled one of this mage, I forget his name. He was considered like one of the best mages in China who was playing in the US at the time. And they dueled, and he beat that mage 3-0. And he wrote this huge blog about how rogue should never lose to mages anymore. Like, he completely dumpstered them, and like in the last patch, he had been getting owned by that mage. And I posted on his forums. I was like, "There's absolutely no way that you would beat me in a duel. Like, I don't care what happened with this mage. I've never lost to a rogue, and I won't lose to you." So he kind of took that challenge, and I logged on the tournament realm, and I dueled against him, and I played some really kind of what I thought was like a little bit of a cheesy spec, but it was super smart. Not a lot of people did it. It was because at that point you could like split your spec up. So what I did is I played Frost primarily, and then some fire talents, including like Impact and Ignite, and then I would use Molten Armor, and I would just run around, and as he attacked me, he would get stunned, Impact stun from attacking into Molten Armor, and he would actually just die from attacking into Molten Armor. He was on kind of like a time limit, taking damage from that.
So I was about to
And,
ask if what expansion this was, but then you said Impact Stun. So this was Burning Crusade, right?
Yeah, Burning Crusade.
Do you know about, was that like season 1-ish?
I think it was season 2.
Season 2?
In season 2 that happened.
Sorry to
And
interrupt
yeah, so I beat him. I think I 3-0'd him or something like that, and he like wrote this big blog about me and how like I'm the best mage he's ever dueled. And ever since then, I don't know, I got kind of like notoriety on like the all overall on WoW, because I was always like back at level 60. That's all I did was duel. And if you go back and look at like all the Death of Rock forum posts, everyone was like, "Oh my god, Venruki best mage," you know, because they used to do a best of each class thread, and everyone would just put me for the best horde mage.
Oh, I've been in a few of those, but I'm glad I wasn't on that server. So that's actually really cool. Really cool story. When did you get in contact with some of the pro players that you play with now, that like you started doing MLG and stuff?
No, man. So there's kind of a funny story. So like I said, back on Death Rock, I was considered like the shit. You know, in season 1, I'd primarily played 2v2, and I played double mage 2v2, and that's how I got Gladiator. Also, on the last day, I'd never played one game of 3v3, and I'd never played one game of 5v5. So the last day of the season, some friends asked me to play 3s with them, and we ended up playing Warrior Mage Shaman. And in one day, from playing 0 game in 3s, we pushed up and got Gladiator. I think we were like top 10 or something like that, after one day of playing, which was pretty funny. So I'd gotten Gladiator in season 1, and Soda, who didn't play on Death Rock in season 1, transferred over in season 2. And he was a raiding druid. He transferred over. He also got Gladiator, playing rogue druid 2v2. And since I was in Druitar all day, he was looking for new partners, and he wanted to kind of like make his name known. So what he did is he would just constantly challenge me to duels. And I'm like, "You're a resto druid. I'm a frost mage. Like, this is literally the least fun duel ever. Like, I don't understand why you want to do this." He's like, "Come on, man, just duel me. I'll show you how good I am." So we would duel, and what he would do, like, we made an agreement at the start of the duel that like he's not allowed to use his PvE gear because it's just the only way I can possibly win is if I run him out of mana. Otherwise, it's impossible to win. I was like a Frost Mage back then against a Resto Druid. And what he would do is if he ended up going in PvP gear, he would run and pillar kite me until he went out of combat, then switch over to full PvE gear so he wouldn't lose the duel. So I just hated him. He would ask me to play. I'm like, I'm never playing with you. Like, I just thought he was like a cheater and a scumbag, and I was basically just QQing, and like I had no interest in playing with him whatsoever. I actually hated him.
Oh, he's one of my favorite nerds. I can see him doing something like that.
Yeah. So we ended up like he was like my rival kind of because I just like was so disgusted by what he was doing to me in duels that I played Rogue Mage Priest and he played Rogue Mage Druid. And, at the start of the season, he would actually beat my team. But we kind of figured it out later on in the season and just farmed him into the dirt. But I really, respected him as a player. And I knew the mage and the rogue he was playing with weren't really that good. Like, I was way better than his mage, and my rogue was way better than his rogue. So he was, the only reason they were putting up a fight whatsoever. So I finally, gave in, and we started playing together. And we played Rogue Mage Druid for forever, for years and years and years. And I honestly feel like, despite the little bit of tournament success we have, if Soda had played a better comp, because one of the things that really sucked was that older tournaments in World of Warcraft were never on the current patch/gear. So the Season 4 patch, they would have Season 2 gear in tournaments. So stuff you were doing on live with the current gear, because you could do more damage, those strategies just didn't work. And when you reverted back to the Season 2 gear with the Season 4 patch, the really turtly comps like WLD, you just could never kill them because you just didn't have enough damage as Rogue Mage. So despite us having overwhelming success in Season 3 and Season 4 as Rogue Mage Druid, anytime we went to a tournament, we just couldn't make anything happen in the old gear, which was really unfortunate. And I think that if Soda had played WLD or something like that, he actually wouldn't have lost a single tournament. Literally, he was so much better than any other Druid. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember I went Resto for one season, several seasons ago, and watched him, the skill cap videos and stuff. And oh my gosh, those are the most thorough, detailed skill cap videos I've ever seen. I mean, he teaches these little bitty nuances that nobody else would think of. So I totally get behind you on that. So you played RMD. Who's the rogue there?
So we originally played with this rogue Gammer, and it's kind of we played with him and we thought he was good, but just to be honest, the main reason we played with him is because he had the best gear in the game. He was in Soda's guild and he just had the best gear. He had 4-piece, and he didn't have glaives, but he had pretty much everything you could possibly have besides glaives, and it just it makes such a big difference in arena that we opted to play with him over anyone else. Though when it come time to do tournaments, we decided that we wanted to get someone else because we just weren't super confident in what he was doing. So we tried out a few different rogues, and I actually knew Happy Minty from his videos of Nerf Sap back in the day. So we got in contact with him and practiced with him and played with him, and he ended up getting Gammer's account information. Gammer was a really good sport about it, and he practiced with us, and that's the rogue we played with until we replaced him with Reckful. That was the trio: me, Happy Minty, and Soda, and we were known as the team that was super good friends with each other. Despite always getting owned in tournaments, we still kept going and kept practicing and tried to put our best foot forward, and I don't know, use the power of teamwork and friendship to our advantage.
It's funny. So when was it that Reckful joined the team?
Happy Minnie just decided he couldn't play anymore. He wasn't he was a lot older than me and Soda. I think he was 5 years older, so he didn't have the time to, he wanted to move out and have a life, and he just couldn't support himself playing WoW. So he just had to come to the realization that that wasn't something he could do. So me and Soda, once again, looking for a new rogue. We were on Complexity. We wanted another rogue to join us on Complexity, and we ended up trying out Reckful, and that's another story. It's another story. So we tried out two rogues. There's one named Perplexity. He was a young kid. He was a really good rogue. And then there was Reckful, who's he was famous. He had never played Mutilate. He never spec Mutilate once in 3 seasons or whatever. He's always just
right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a Shadow Dance hero, and he had such a big name. He played with Fusion and Hype. They played with RMP, but he was interested in doing tournaments and stuff because he had such big name recognition, and he wanted to show what he could do. And Fusion and Hype obviously weren't sponsored, and they didn't have an opportunity to go to tournaments for free like we did. So he ended up like ditching them and deciding to play with us a little bit. And the first time we practiced with him, because I had always taken the role as like sort of team leader when we played arenas, like I would call out our targets and strategies and stuff like that during the game. And he also did the same thing for his team. So when we played together for the first time, we kind of butt heads. You know, I was calling out something, but he wanted to do something else, and we were like really hesitant. And the Q session just was a nightmare. We were playing Rogue Mage Priest mirrors against Pooks' team at the time, which was Reels, Enforcer, and Pooks. They were SK Gaming. They were a really, really good RMP, and we were just losing every game. And it was just because we weren't coordinating well, and were not on the same page. And at one point, Soda's like, "Yep, we don't want to play with you," and he just left the Skype call. So it was like, despite Reckle being so good, just because like we had such class personalities, we gave up the first day, and then later on, after like talking it through and trying it again, and like just letting one of us sort of target call and like making sure we were on the same page, ended up just clicking, and we ended up doing super well against them in mirrors, and that's when we decided that we wanted to try and play the three of us.
And then eventually you guys won that MLG. I can't remember what year it was, but you had Snuts on the team by then, right?
Yeah, so what actually happened with me, Reckle, and Soda is we couldn't lose to a rogue team. So we would beat every RMP in mirrors, and we would beat every RLS. And that was literally our only responsibilities in tournaments, is like we literally couldn't beat anything else, but we would just cock block those teams. So any RMP, for example, Button Bashers that went up against us, they could beat every other team in the tournament, but they would just get matched up against us, and they just could not beat us in a mirror. So our only responsibility and like goal was to just like beat out Team EG who played RLS. We were the best RMP against RLS, and to like beat out other RMPs in mirrors and stuff. I remember like there was a really epic series we had against Button Bashers. It was the same tournament the whole Down Goes Venruki thing happened. It was I think it was MLG Columbus finals. I forget what year it was, 2009 or something like that.
I thought that was Orlando, wasn't it?
It might have been Orlando, yeah. Sorry, MLG Orlando. It was the finals, and we lost against. Oh no, this was we had lost against the Beast Sleeve, and then we played against Button Bashers in an RMP mirror, and we beat them 5-0, and it just felt so good. We had like tried out this new strategy, and it just worked so well against them, and it was just a complete slaughter, and we knocked them out of the tournament.
Another thing to throw a little bit of ego to Soda, like nobody else played dual classes back then. He played Druid and Priest. Like he was one of the only people that did that back then. Like now everybody does it, but it was kind of a big deal.
There's a funny story. So when Wrath of the Lich King came out, DKs had like this weird bug with their Necrotic Plague. So when they used Necrotic Strike, it would remove dots, it would remove hots. It would remove hots, and it would put up a disease that periodically removed hots. And it was the most overpowered thing in the game because it was bugged against druids, where it would remove a 3-stack life bloom and not heal.
Oh.
So that's how druids healed against purge, is they would use life bloom. And like if you dispelled like a 2-stack life bloom and then a 1-stack life bloom, it healed for a lot. And against DKs, they could just necrotic strike your 3-stack life bloom, and you didn't heal for anything. So you just couldn't heal. You couldn't use rejuve. Like your regrowth didn't do anything. And your life bloom literally didn't do anything. So we went to a tournament in Germany, and there's a long story behind that, but we went to a tournament in Germany as Rogue Mage Druid, and this is before he had played Priest, and it was actually the reason he started playing Priest, is because literally every team in the tournament, we went to Germany and lost 0-6. We didn't beat a single team because every team in the tournament played a Death Knight against us, except Button Bashers. That was the first time we had ever played against them, but they cheated with a glyph that was bugged, which is interesting. You remember like, sorry, I'm rambling on about random stuff.
No, go. We love it. As long as you want.
There was a tournament. It was the same tournament. I forget what year it was, but it was like the ESL finals or something like that in Cologne, I think it was. And there was a glyph. It was a glyph of ambush, and all the glyph did was make your ambush do more damage. But it was secretly bugged to make a rogues just do 15% more damage. Or it might have been 20%. So they just had a glyph that no one else had in the entire tournament that just was bugged, that made their rogues do 20% more damage than anyone else.
Just passively.
And yeah, and they both played RMP, and they got first and second in that tournament.
Wow.
cheating, but I guess it was smart. Yeah.
Well, Blizzard has kind of brought the hammer down on all their tournaments a little bit more recently, so that's good. I know a lot of
And
people
when
complain about the
yeah,
drama, but I think
I
it's
just want to
good.
be clear when I say like they were cheating, they were still like unbelievably good. They were just as good as any other team.
Yeah, no, I got you.
They were amazing, and then also had just a random 20% increased damage the entire game.
So I don't really want to talk about the Down Goes Venruki story because everybody's seen it and heard it a billion times. So I wanted to play a clip tonight, and I was gonna play maybe that one. Everybody's heard it. So I actually went to look for the ChinaCon that you guys had won back in 2012, and
Yep.
I watched the end of that, and I didn't realize that it ended up being a timeout game. Like it went to the 20 minutes, and I totally forgot that for some reason, and I was like, "Well, that's anticlimactic." So I guess I won't.
It
Show
was
that scene.
anticlimactic, but it was literally it was so sweet. I didn't
No, no,
even
no. I
care.
remember getting up and like cheering because I was, Snuts at second place all the time, and everybody was cheering for him, and Rectal
The
was there
yeah.
casting and stuff. So I thought it was awesome. Go ahead.
The story of like what happened to me, Snuts, and Soda at the 2010 BlizzCon was the tragedy. I think it was the biggest. Besides maybe the teams getting disqualified mid-series in EU, like I actually think this is worse. What happened to us? To be honest, I don't know if you guys remember
No, I don't
at all.
remember it at all. I think
So
that
yeah,
would have been.
we were in the finals. It was Wrath of the Lich King, and it's me, Soda, and Snuts, and we were playing against a European LSD. Um, and the way this tournament worked was if a round timed out. Okay, so you would play the first game. If that game timed out, you would have an advantage. The series would stay at 0-0, but you'd have an advantage if you did more damage going into game two. Okay, so first game times out, second game times out again. Whoever did more damage in the first game gets the point. Okay, and games timed out after 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, a Blizzard ref was like, or after like 19 minutes and 30 seconds, a Blizzard ref was supposed to come up and be like, yo, 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds before the game ends. And that was like your warning that things were about to end. And we played Magelock Druid, and they played LSD. And Elemental Shamans just did more damage than mages, and they just played to turtle and timeout every single game. So the finals of the 2010 BlizzCon literally took 5 hours. We were just sitting there playing for 5 hours straight. We had to come back. We had to come back because we were coming from the losers bracket. It was a double elimination tournament. We had to win 2 best of 5 series, and they had to win 1. They were up 2-0 in the first series, and because we just couldn't get a kill as Magelock Druid, we switched to Magelock Priest, and we ended up winning 3 in a row and going into the second series.
So you literally
So-
just got like turtle all day idioted on.
We got turtle all day, but we switched to the priest and then we won. We actually won the first series. So that had been like a 3-hour series, and now finally we're going into like a new best of 5 series. We were just completely exhausted, like so emotionally drained. But despite that, we kept playing MLP, and we actually we were up 2-1, and they had an advantage. So we won. They won 1, we won 2, and then they had an advantage because the game timed out. Okay, and we had gotten Runes of Lordaeron against them, so it was game point for us to win all of BlizzCon, and they were on the verge of elimination. Or if they won, then it was going to be tied 2-2. So we played this crazy long game. It was so back and forth, and it was really close. And at one point, as like a last ditch effort, Soto was completely and they weren't letting him drink, and we just had like the most insane kill on their enemy warlock. Like we had literally used everything. We were all solo. Soda ended up using like his last 3% of mana on like an offensive penance and death to kill the warlock, and like we literally thought we won BlizzCon. We were like, holy moly, like it finally happened. Like I can't believe.
Now I
we-
remember. I'm remembering now. Yes. Oh man.
Yeah,
I'm
totally,
gonna cry.
like-
Oh.
I can't believe we came back. Like it's amazing. Everyone's shouting. Like our coach runs up on stage and gives us a big hug. Like our names up on the wall. Like they cut to commercial break. Like, oh, Complexity Red, the winners of BlizzCon, and they like took our computers away and stuff like that, and we were just so done after like playing for 5.5 hours. Like it's not normal playing for 5.5 hours. These are like the most intense games of your life because you're trying to win like almost $100,000. You know, it's like it's super draining, and the enemy team's like, nope, that was over 20 minutes, and we're like, oh, really, it was over 20 minutes. So they contest the win, and they go back and they look.
They count it
And
down second
despite
by second. I remember.
20 minutes, 8 seconds.
Ugh.
So, and despite Blizzard literally saying nothing to us, like they didn't come up at 19:30 and say like, nope, like game's about to end. Nobody said anything, but because it was their rules, they had to overturn the win. So the series tied up at 2-2, and we're like, oh my god, like we have to really play again. Like we just gave it everything we had, and I'm sure they did too. But we queue up. And it randomly pops up Ring of Valor because maps used to be random.
Yeah.
We got Ring of Valor, and that was the only map we couldn't beat them on.
Oh, that's terrible.
Or Priest, because Priest just went He had to drink, so our Priest just went in 2 minutes. All they had to do was live 2 minutes, and we instantly lost. And then we lost BlizzCon.
Yeah, as sad as that story is, like your meme shouldn't be down goes for Venruki. It should be turn all day kind of thing.
Yeah.
It sucks, but. I do like that you've turned your turtle all day thing into your own thing. Like you like the meme, it's in your emotes, it's in your shirt and stuff, and you don't let it get to you anymore. I think it's really good how you respond to trolls, and then your story earlier about the forum posts and all that stuff. I think you've always been pretty good at handling trolls, so that's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to be. You got to have thick skin doing the job I do. To be honest.
So I think Thranen wanted to quickly pick your brain about Legion,
Sure.
So I'll let him go ahead and ask you whatever question he has.
Alright, so we had a question earlier in the stream about the PvP changes. Everything pretty much going to PvE gear and all of that, and having basically a cosmetic PvP atmosphere, almost. What do you think about that? Is it going to like bring the game down at all, or is it going to boost it up?
Well, I mean, so one of the most annoying things for me, this expansion, has been the gearing process, and despite it being is basically the easiest it's ever been to get gear, it's still so unbelievably annoying, especially as like a streamer for me. And I know this is a problem for a lot of people. Is like I don't want to play one character. Like I don't want to play my mage only. It's boring. I want to play like my monk, and on my monk I want to play a Mistweaver monk, and like I want to play druid, and I want to play boomkin, and maybe I want to try feral, and like I want to play warrior. And it's so frustrating if you like level up a character mid-season. You're literally just behind in gear the entire season, and it's one of the most dissatisfying things about World of Warcraft to me. Is I feel like as a PvPer in WoW, I've almost gotten over the whole like this is an MMO and you got to grind gear. I'm more like I just want a PvP and I want the gear to be fair. Like
especially so after playing games like League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm,
yeah,
where
you just
click go and let's go.
It's like, oh man, we got that guy to 5%. If only I had gear, we would have won instead of lost. Even though we clearly outplayed them and like they didn't do anything. Like they just. Well, another big problem is like item level is such a huge difference. Like the difference between having full gear and not having full gear is like some ridiculous amount of like attack power and stamina, and like it's just it's such a huge advantage that it just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. And it's annoying to play with someone's ult who has like blues, because you just know that if they didn't, then you would be winning so many more games. So I think them moving over to like more cosmetics. I mean, there's still going to be item level in the game. You can like upgrade your gear. It's just not going to be as big of a deal. It's going to be like 3 item levels instead of like 20 that it is now, which is just absurd to me. Because it's just such a big difference.
He said like 1 or 2% instead of like 15-20% difference, which is
it's like 30 or something.
Yeah,
it's like 35% to go from
like,
blues to purples.
Yeah, blues to purples is literally like you're 30% better. It just makes no sense.
And the worst feeling right now is like if you barely didn't have the rating to get that weapon that next week, that first week that it comes out, everybody that got a weapon just steamrolls on everybody else.
Well, it's just the reason it's ultra annoying is because I mean I know like getting gear in WoW is super awesome, and I like the feeling of like opening up and like getting a purple, and if it's you that wins, it's so cool. Like if you just that first week just random like you go to Ashran and you randomly get the best in slot piece of gear, and then you go to Ashran or you do your RBGs and you randomly get the best trinket in the game, you're just like, oh my god, like I am such a lord right now. Like you just have dominion over all the plebs in the arena, and when you join in, you just know you're gonna win. You just do 20% more damage than the other team. Then it's like that's fun, but it's only fun for that person. Everyone else is just annoyed and pissed off and frustrated that they're getting the trash loot, you know, instead of the stuff they want.
Yeah, I remember the first season of Mists of Pandaria, they had it to where the weapon. They had the normal weapon, and then they had like an elite weapon that you could get at 2200, and that one was way better. It actually ended up being the same item level as the next season's PvP weapon. And I remember I did RBGs as a Guardian Druid, and I literally just sat there in bear form with a flag. I never did RBGs, and I hated RBGs, and I just sat there with a flag and got 2200. And I got that weapon, and I never played one more RBG the rest of the season. I just like stomp on people. It was so fun.
Well,
But,
there's another thing that really bothers me about it, and this is one of the problems with being undergeared, is it's a similar problem I've always annoyed me about League of Legends. So when I first started out playing League of Legends, I was really interested in like being the jungler. So like when I first started out, I wanted to jungle, but I quickly came to realize that without the proper runes and like glyphs and or whatever, you can't do it. You literally, when you start out the game, you have to learn how to play the game wrong. You know, like you're not playing how you should,
yeah.
which is weird. Like you're literally supposed to be learning the game wrong, and it's the same thing in like WoW Arena. Whereas like if you're like a warrior who should normally be like sitting this cheap shot when no one's doing too much damage, you just all of a sudden have to trinket because you don't have enough like health and stuff like that. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, can you imagine that in like a shooter like Counter-Strike where you get gear and you have to go in there and headshot, it takes 3 shots to kill them instead of 1? Like how much would you want to break your keyboard for something like that?
Yeah.
It'd be terrible. Like Heroes does a really good job of that. They got rid of the items. They spread all that stuff out. Makes it a lot more like, simple. Don't complexize it too much. I think I just made up a word, but that's okay. And they don't make it too complex. They don't add the items. And I actually just for the first time since March of 2014, because I looked at my profile, I logged into League of Legends and I had to go buy items, and of course the meta changes too, so you have to change all that stuff on top of changing your playstyle and what you play and talent and stuff. I think gear is the way of the past, so I really like what they're doing for the future.
I think, well, the thing is, I think it's important to incentivize your players because a lot of people, their experience in the game is gearing up. They like gearing up. It's like a fun thing to do. So I think the way they added the new like PvP system where you can like level up that way, and I think adding like cosmetic rewards, like really cool mounts or really cool weapons or like armor that you can wear is like a big deal too. Like if you're a rank 1 player, you should get like this really cool set of armor or like a really cool weapon or something like that, and that like makes all the gladiators have something to aspire to, you know. Or if like you're not the best player but you want to put a lot of time and effort into grinding up what's the new system called? It's like
I forget the name.
Prestige. It's like Prestige.
Yeah, it's
basically
Prestige.
like
Is it
Call of
Prestige?
Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think
I
it was
thought it
called
was.
the same thing.
I don't think it's called Prestige, but it is exactly the same thing as Prestige. I forget what it's called. But yeah, so if you're like a player who's like not the best in the game, but you still want to like work towards something like that system, like if you get Prestige 30, like you should get this really like awesome mount that isn't an ogre thing, you know, like that's actually something really, really badass that Blizzard like made specifically for you. And it just like having different avenues for people to earn rewards that are really cool and unique to like the way that they've been playing, I think is important.
I think that's a really good point that you actually brought that up, because I was curious. So me, I'm like pleb duelist player, like 2300 every season, can never get glad. And for me, I will probably prestige to max and get all the stuff. But for you, you're going to be competing at that high level. You're going to be wanting to not lose any rank. And when you prestige, you go all the way back to not having all these PvP talents. Is that something you're going to do, or are you just going to go and do 2s to try to get all that prestige? Or
Well, that's the thing is like if it happens to be where like there's this really cool reward, or like it's actually like for some reason it I don't know, like I feel like I will, like if there's something I want to earn and they do that in like the prestige system, I absolutely will sacrifice like. And I think it's also important to see how long it takes, because it might only take like 15 BGs to get like a full level, or like 20 or something like that, and that's really not that big a deal.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, and they already said like even right away you'll be able to have like a talent from each row. So who knows? It'll probably be different for every class. The luck of the draw, which ones are the best, and like if you can reset your prestige or whatever. But yeah, I think it might be annoying at times, but it's still something that's like a little bit of a sacrifice you have to give in order to like grind up like everyone else.
Awesome. I I like that answer. You might do it if it's good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, if there's a reason for me to do it, I'll do it. If
Right.
there's not, then I obviously won't, because then what's the point? But if there's like something really cool that I can like earn, then I'd totally be interested.
Did you have anything else for him on that before we go to our couple viewer questions?
No, I think that pretty much covered it.
Okay, we just have a few short questions. I think they'll be easy answers. We have
Sure.
from Finzito on Malganis in US. He says, "Is it weird being called Venruki in person? Like when you and Bajira presented the BlizzCon finals, the qualifiers is what he meant."
Well, it's not that weird because I've been Venruki in WoW for like 10 years, so it's kind of like this persona I've taken on. A lot of like my WoW friends and like my actually real life friends will call me Ven, and the reason I like that is because like my real life friends call me Ven because it's my last name, Venzel, and like my WoW friends will call me Ven because it's just the short version of Venruki. So it's like this perfect little nickname that like summarizes me, and that's what I like to be called when someone's just like talking. I mean, you can call me Elliot, you can call me Venruki, you can call me Ven, whatever you want. But yeah, if someone calls me Venruki in real life, it doesn't bother me just because it's like it's been a part of my life for so long, and honestly, I've been like. For the last 10 years, that's kind of who like I've been. I've spent so much time in this game and in this community and on Twitch and in WoW that it's just as much my name as Elliot in like a weird way.
And I feel you there. And I think I may have told you about this, but so I've been married for 4 years and something, and a guy who was my healer. So I played a Boomkin, and he was a Disc Priest. We played Boomkin Disc Priest Warrior back in like Wrath and got Duelist, and we felt pretty pro at that. But anyway, he lives in Seattle, which is like way top west U.S., and I live in Oklahoma, which is pretty close to Austin. So you've been pretty close to both of those areas. And he ended up flying like 4 hours to come to my wedding, and I had never met him before. And I knew his name, and he knew mine. But the whole time I called him Duke, and he called me Rashiwi or Raish or whatever. And it was kind of a little awkward exchange for the first like 5 minutes, and then after that, you're just like whatever, and everything seems fine. You're used to hearing those people's voices, and I guess it goes back to when you're in all those people's different teams, complexity and Three Amigos and stuff. You meet with those people, you're not used to seeing them, but you're used to hearing them every day. But the same guy also asked us. This is a little more specific. He says, "Do you think the monk as a class will be competitive in threes or RBGs moving forward from Season 3 after the next patch? Not in Legion. So in Warlords."
Not in Legion?
Yeah, just in Warlords.
As far as I know, monks and RBGs are basically only good for defending. So they actually are decently useful on like the maps where you need to defend a flag. So like Arathi Basin, Eye of the Storm. What else? Battle for Gilneas. They're actually very useful flag carriers. You go rushing Jadewind, and you have a port far away, and you can just use rushing Jadewind, and you can't get ninja capped on because it ticks every second. You just use it, and if anyone tries to like sheep you or like blind sap you, they just can't cap. It's not possible. So monks are actually a little bit useful in RBGs right now for that reason. In terms of arena, I actually think that Walking Dead or Windwalker, DK Paladin, that composition is decently strong. Like I think it's actually like a tier 2 comp. Like it has a reasonable chance against even the best comps in the game. If you play it at like a really high level, you actually have a chance to beat everything. So I think in threes, if you're running that comp, you definitely have a shot at like pushing rating just as much as everyone else.
So if there are no changes, do you think that like that Walking Dead, that melee cleave will get stronger or weaker throughout the item level change? Because I remember back in the day, like warriors were the most gear dependent, and they would get better and better and better and better. At the end of BC and the end of Wrath, you would see warriors and melee and rep helis like really do strong. And then later on, like in Cataclysm and Mop, we see these wizard cleaves get better and better and better and better. Do you think that Walking Dead is going to get stronger or weaker next season with the item level?
It's hard to say. It's one of those comps that like what you do is barely survive. So you just run around and you barely survive, and then you do your burst, and then you barely survive by like, Death Knights are hard to kill. Monks are very slippery, and with the Death Knight gripping people off, like it's hard to catch them. And basically, your job is to just barely survive the whole game until you eventually like kind of outlast your opponent and out pressure them. You also, in some, depending on what you're fighting against, can just rush people down. So it's hard to say. You might just fall over instantly, and like against like a god comp or something like that. If you get Hodge, you might just explode. Whereas like in the previous patch, you could barely live and port away and heal yourself. So little changes like that are really really fringe. But monks actually scale exceptionally well with gear. Like monks scale really really well with bonus agility. So their damage is going to skyrocket next patch, I believe, and in the new gear.
That's a good question, or a good answer for that question, I think. The next one is from Smittytron from Emerald Dream in US. He says, considering WoW's age, are there ways to improve the game as an esport, or is it all downhill from here? Are there any changes to the game or tournament formats you would like to see?
This is kind of like a little bit of like a controversial question, because I at this point in WoW, I love 3v3. I think 3v3 is awesome. But I think in terms of like if WoW really wanted to like grow as an esport, and I don't know if it is too late for this. It might be, maybe it's not. But I think from like a viewing experience, if you could nail like a really really good like 5v5 or 6v6 RBG, I think that's totally the way to do WoW esports. Like little one-on-ones and 2v2s and 3v3s over the map, and it's like really easy for people to follow, because it's like, oh man, this guy needs to get that flag there, and ultimately it doesn't really matter like the little things that go on from like a viewer, like someone that's like isn't really familiar with the game. You can still tell like that person needs to do this, and it's like really easy to follow. Whereas right now it's kind of like, even if you're like a duelist player or like a gladiator player, you don't even know what's going on a lot of the time in like 3v3 games. You kind of just like look at the cooldowns and you can see who's ahead, but it's really hard to like pay attention to.
Looking at your DR trackers, watching your add-ons, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I also think one thing WoW needs to do that would be really cool is speed up the pace of the game. Like, I think people dying is really exciting. So in a game like 3v3 where like a death only happens once every like 10 minutes, that's like, it can be cool, but it's a little slow paced, compared to like all the other good esports like League of Legends and Counter-Strike and Dota, where like there's constant action and people dying and like ganks happening and fights happening all over the map. Like, it's just the amount of action.
Yeah, the 6v6 that you mentioned, that does that too. And we watched that stuff last week. The Battle for the GCD TV and D Machine did, and we both went into that thing thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna be like mini RBGs." We didn't watch the Warsong Gulch one. We were like, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be boring." And I remember I was just typing to her like, "Wow, this is so awesome! Like, this is really entertaining. You can keep up with it all. You got to watch the objectives, and then like when one death happens, it's a huge deal. But they get to keep going, and you get to keep this like influx of entertainment."
Yeah, and I honestly think that Battle for Gilneas, I mean, I love GCD. I think they do an amazing job, but I think Battle for Gilneas is probably the worst map to do the 6v6 on, because it doesn't really change the dynamic that much. Normally it's just one person defends, another person defends, and then it's a 9v9 at Waterworks.
And I think in that situation it was probably the caliber of the players. But
well, it's the same thing in... I mean, I didn't watch the finals or whatever, but I assume it was just a 5v5 at Waterworks, and that was who decided who won and lost. It's super easy to keep track of like where people are. They're not at Waterworks. There's only one other place they could be. They're gonna go Ninja. Whereas something like Eye of the Storm, where there's like 4 different nodes in the flag, when you only have like 6 people on your team, there's very limited. Like there's so many options for what you can do. Like going and winning a one-on-one against someone and like capturing that node and like having someone come and reinforce. Like, I don't know. I feel like it splits up the players a lot more, and the strategies become a lot more in depth. And I honestly feel like the future of WoW esports, and like to move in the right direction, would be like not using the current maps for like 6v6 or whatever, but like designing some really cool, interesting maps that are for that. And I think like having like power ups like berserking and like the rejuve, like stuff like that is cool too. Like having players take advantage of that kind of stuff was always really neat. And like Quake back in the day, like going and like picking up the med packs and like bonus damage or whatever. I think it's cool.
Maybe kill a mob for it, kind of like Dragon or Baron in League of Legends. You have to do a little bit for it. You can get punished for it. Maybe make it in the middle of the map. something
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like that. Literally, that like having like a little bit of PVE. I don't even think it was like a bad idea.
No.
Like, oh man, like
You have to
yeah,
compete for the PvE. You have to PvP to do the PvE. So
yeah, like
that's
I
good.
think it's just the tip of the iceberg right now, and I think everyone's in the mindset that like that 3v3 is like all there is. But I think from like a spectator point of view, and personally, I don't even. I prefer 5v5. I literally think 5v5 is a better game than
Yeah, I've been trying to
3v3.
get a whole bunch of my friends to come back just because of 5v5, and they're
Like
not.
fives is great
And
because
they
like
don't have to have like three super high caliber players, and the balance doesn't matter as much. You can just kind of come in there with basically whatever comp you want. I mean,
you see it in WoW specific. I mean, if you look, the game gets less and less unbalanced as the more players that come in.
Right.
So like, I mean, at a certain degree, that's not completely true. But like, one-on-ones are typically more unbalanced than 2v2s, which are typically more unbalanced than 3v3s, and then 5v5s. You know, like the more players there are, the less like specific little class balance things matter.
yeah.
So
And then the 5v or the 6v6s are a little more entertaining than the 10v10s because you don't have to watch 10 different people do all
Yeah,
these
it
different
just
things and
becomes too
basically
much at that
PvE
point.
at each other. You know, throw
it
all
just
their
becomes too much
spells.
at that point. But
Okay.
I really think like if they want to like bring back PvP, they should do like rated RBGs, which are really cool, and like, but like make it less people. 10v10 to me is too many people.
Yeah. Well, we had one more question, and the only reason I'm asking it is because it's kind of funny, and I thought you get a chuckle out of it. And it's a short one. He said, "This is from GoPG. He didn't have a server from the U.S. It says, can you use your influence as a famous WoW PvPer to get the everyman for himself racial nerfed? I know people would say it's unnecessary because they will change it in Legion, but I think the sooner the better."
Well, what really is unfortunate is I think the horde ratios are actually good. Like,
Yeah, I do too.
I greatly prefer like when I'm playing Walking Dead, for example, playing in the triple Blood Elf. I think it's amazing. Like Blood Elf interrupts so good. Like Orc is so good as well. Like when we play against like when I play Rogue Mage Druid with Sea-Doo, and when he's on a rogue and I'm on a mage, like the difference between fighting a dwarf shaman and like an orc shaman is actually huge. And I think with like the racial changes, one of the main reasons people don't want to switch is because they're tired of being jerked around with racials.
And
Like,
a
I,
lot
for
more
one-
people have like way more characters now too. It's
Yeah, well, I for-
expensive.
Yeah, I for one am like, yo, I have my mage, I have my monk, I have my druid, I have my warrior. Like, do I really want to pay $120 to go horde? No, I don't, and other people don't want to either. Like that's a lot of money. Like I could choose to go horde on those four characters, or I could like buy two different complete video games, you know, like or whatever. I could go to like 6 movies instead, and I think people are like. It gets tiresome after a while. Like, oh my god, now Horde's so much better. Oh my god, now Alliance is so much better. Now Horde's so much better. And honestly, feels like, to me, despite me loving Blizzard so much, it feels like a scam a little bit. Like I just feel like we're being like abused in a certain sense. So I like almost refuse to go back Horde, even though I think it's really good and I think it's completely viable right now.
And I know Super Tease for one has really pushed in a bunch of Twitter posts I follow on Twitter. He spams like, "Come on, cross-faction arenas, let's do it. We've already got this little deal that they added to BG's, the, what's it called?"
Yeah, I don't see why not. And like the turn, there's no lore problem. A lot of the time, Blizzard doesn't want to do that stuff because of lore. But like,
It's arena, you know?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
literally doesn't.
They're
matter.
literally just trying to kill each other, so why not
Yeah,
have
if
the
you go
best
back
people?
into the lore of arena, it actually makes complete sense that like they'd be fighting together. You know, it's not a big deal. And I mean, if Blizzard really cared about like balancing Horde and Alliance, they could give us like a 75% discount for like a week or something to like go back Horde if they want to balance it out. But paying full price over and over and over, just like it's too much. I
Or
don't know.
group transfer would be nice. You take one, you can take 3 more for half price, and you take them for a little bit, or
Yeah,
or
something
for
like
free.
that. So, because I mean, people don't want to have half their. Well, some people do, but I mean, most of the time, like you don't want to have like half your characters Horde and half your characters Alliance. At least I don't. I have no interest in that.
And I think having cross-realm arenas, I think people will still transfer back and forth depending on what the best spec is for their
Oh, for sure.
class.
No,
You
no
know.
good doubt.
Like you'll still be Blood Elf on your Windwalker, and I'll still be Night Elf on my Druid for sure. So I don't think that's a big problem. But well, anyway, I guess that's all that I have. That's all I had noted. I'm glad that you came and spent your evening with us. It was a lot of fun. Do you have anything else, Brandon?
No, Ed. Pretty good.
Okay. Well, I know this is weird because you are so. What did that guy say? Famous WoW PvPer. But we do have actually quite a bit of PvEers that watch our stream and non-WoW players that watch our stream, or actually listen to the podcast more or less. They don't really watch the stream. So, Venruki, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, sure. Twitter.com/Elliot Venzel, ELLIOTTVENCZEL. Kind of complicated, or you can just go to my Twitch page, twitch.tv/Venruki, and you can find all my social media on there if you want.
And you're supposed to say at Elliot Venzel, not Twitter.com.
Sorry.
You're bad at this, man.
I
know you never
what
plug
else.
yourself. You're like the opposite of a sellout.
Just go to
It's okay.
twitch.tv/Venruki. Scroll down. It's there. It's all there.
Just watch his stream. He's really responsive. He'll talk to you in chat as long as he's got
I'll
the
try
time
my
to
best.
do it. I know he's always responded to my
Sometimes
stuff.
like sometimes it's like because I feel like I'm so responsive and people kind of like expect that of me when I'm not. Like if I'm not literally answering every question or like I miss a question, people become like frustrated or like annoyed or like think I'm like ignoring them or don't like them anymore or something like that. And it's like, nope, I'm just can't do it this time.
If he doesn't respond to you, just send him some money. He'll respond to you then. He'll see it. It'll be fine. I know when I was trying to get you to do all this, I felt like I was just annoying you the whole time, and I'm sure you felt like you were just ignoring me the whole time. So
well, it's hard when I'm streaming. It's like I just have to like when I'm streaming, I really have to just focus on streaming. So like another thing that happens is like people will whisper me in game because like I don't see their question or I'm not giving them the answer they want in my stream chat. They'll like start whispering me in game and then they'll be like, "Wow, you elitist douchebag! Like I can't believe you won't respond to me. Like you're such an asshole. Like I thought you were cool." And I'm like, I'm just trying. Like I can only focus on so much stuff. I can't have like 10 personal conversations on like Skype and like in game and at the same time as like trying to like do my whole stream because it's like it's hard to focus on all that different stuff.
it's hard to be popular.
I hope people forgive me. I mean, I try my best. I'm not trying to like ignore anyone. It's just it's hard.
It's hard to be popular. And you're like 12 pairs of shoes. That was like a week ago. You talked about all your shoes.
Oh yeah.
So
I don't have 12. I have like
you counted them up. You're like, I got like 3 casual shoes and some. I have like 5, but I have worn out all of mine. But anyway, we'll finish this up. Thrainin, where can they find you on social media?
At Thrainin1 on Twitter. And that's about it for me, honestly. I'm working on a YouTube page for arenas and stuff like that. But that'll be up when my Paladin's ready, I think.
Okay, well, you can find me on Twitter at Rashiwi. You can find our YouTube page. Just search for Rashiwi. You'll see some cool old montage videos of when I backpedaled and was really bad at the game. You can also find our Twitter page at QPopped. Always follow the stream on twitch.tv/Rashiwi if you're listening to a podcast. Also, you can find us on SoundCloud. Just look for QPopped Podcast. You can find us on iTunes or any podcast app. And just look for QPopped. So, with that ado, I will say thanks for queuing up and hope you queue up next time. Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye, guys.